who were gay. But, of course, apart from one instance, it was nobody was having sex with each other. But I do remember there were two chaps who were very obviously having an affair, and we were all in tents together. Well, you try and have sex in a tent and pretend you're not. You'll find it's a very, very difficult thing to do. And people thought that was going a bit far. You can't have that in an officer's mess. It's just not right. I'm sorry to sound pompous and old git, but, you know, you've got to behave yourself, and they weren't behaving themselves. And it was general knowledge in the unit that they were gay and were having an affair, and it just became disruptive.
Em 1944, os aliados iniciaram a invasão da Europa ocupada, desembarcando na Normandia. Joe Dentiff, oficial de infantaria e heterossexual, liderou seu pelotão rumo ao interior.
I had two homosexuals in my company. They had this amazing capacity for seeing the ridiculous part of life, whether it's in battle or wherever. I think they felt they'd got to be extra brave in front of the straight lot. I feel that perhaps they felt it incumbent upon them to be extra brave. Because, you know, I mean, the fact is that homosexuals have always had this brand of being a sissy or whatever and lacking backbone, which is absolute rubbish. They're very brave people. The D-Day landings were absolutely chaos. It was really like some tremendous film set. It didn't seem to me to be real. We had thousands of craft, and we were in a thing called a landing craft infantry, and we were pushed ashore at a place I remember to this day, Lac-sur-Mer. One of my homosexuals was on the start line, and he was doing this like that. I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "I must look pretty for the Germans," which I thought, but everybody collapses, of course. He was killed. But anyway, it was usually the homosexuals who were ready at any time to pop in their fourpenneth, and they always did. You couldn't help but laugh at them, but you didn't laugh at them because we felt they were inadequate. We laughed at them because they had that bloody courage to be, how dare they laugh and be all about when there's so much death and stuff flying around. How dare they? But they did.
Durante todo esse tempo, os comboios no Atlântico estavam sob a constante ameaça dos submarinos alemães.
It was an unknown enemy out there all the time, so it really didn't touch us for a while. But when it did touch us, it hit us with a bang. I was on the bridge on duty, and we'd had the pings of the U-boat, and we were chasing it, and we had these Canadian corvettes. We're all going in a circle, trying to get this U-boat. And suddenly, one of the corvettes fired a shot. I was flashing the emergencies and everything. He said, "Good God, what the hell is he up to?" he said. "That corvette over there," he said. He said he's made the wrong turn. The next minute, he said, "Good God," and it had hit us. He said, "Any casualties down there?" They said, "Yes, sir." They said, "A casualty, one of our ratings has gone." And of course, I suddenly realised it was this friend of mine killed in front of my eyes when this shell struck him when he was a gunner. He was a gunner on the ship, and it hit us all. I thought, my God, because up to that time we didn't think it could happen to any of us. We thought all the boys thought the same as me. It was like one big adventure. We lived from one day to another, but we never thought about death. But when it did come, then for days after that, we all hit a depression. And yet, you know, in that depression, that's when the boys came to my bunk more than ever. As if, you know, live for today, because tomorrow we might not be here.
No fim de 1944, Chris Scott, piloto da Força Aérea, foi promovido a líder de esquadrão. Ele havia voado em cerca de 100 missões.
Our job was long-range penetration over Burma, leapfrogging over the army and all the fighter aircraft and all the rest of it. And we had to ensure that the Jap Zeros didn't take off from a group of airfields at a place called Maitila. It was west of Mandalay. I came in low with the other bloke with me, and we were going full speed out, which in a Mosquito was about 340, 350. And all hell let loose at us, you know, guns a lot. And I had 2 bombs to drop and guns to fire. And there was a hell of a crash, and something knocked me forward. And I don't know whether you can believe it, but flying at 350, only 100 feet off the ground, that could be a very dangerous thing. Anyhow, so my entire attention was taken up doing what I was doing. And we got past it. I mean, it all happened so quickly. And I said down the intercom, "Are you all right?" And I got no answer. And so I started to climb by this time, which gave me a chance to glance to the right. And there was my navigator, and from the bridge of his nose down, it was just a red pulpy mass. And so I realized, of course, he couldn't speak or anything like that, and you know, these 2 eyes were just goggling at me. And I had a 2.5 to 3 hour trip home. And he looked, well, yeah, he obviously was numb with shock. But I mean, one can't put oneself in his position, and I just wondered whether he'd be easier if I loosened his straps, which I did, and he then lifted his helmet, and of course the noise of the aircraft hurt his ears, but he sort of flopped forward within the confines of the cockpit and started to pray. And of course, as time got on, I mean, he lost more and more blood. I mean, the place was awash with blood. And I found near the base, I rang for, on RT, rang for an ambulance, and it was waiting, you know, when we landed, and he was carried out, and he died apparently about 2 hours later from loss of blood.
Próximo ao fim da campanha na África, Noel Carroll Briggs e sua equipe tiveram êxito na missão de ler mensagens codificadas vindas da França, Alemanha e dos Balcãs, que o alto comando alemão consideravam indecifráveis. A equipe na época não sabia, mas sua missão seguinte influenciaria todo o curso da guerra.
The obvious place to attack, as you know, was Sicily. I mean, it's only just across the water. And I suppose everybody's heard of the man who never was. Well, you see, the Germans got hold of this corpse with phony letters addressed to Mountbatten and everybody, making out that we weren't going to attack Sicily. That was too obvious. We were going to attack Sardinia and Greece. And I remember when we were at Bizerta, Alexander and Eisenhower came to inspect us. And we were being particularly good. We were getting an awful lot of stuff out. And we were saying, oh, well, the Germans have moved a whole lot of units here, and they're going into Sardinia, and there's some more going into southern Italy and to Greece and so on. And these 2 generals were jumping up and down like a couple of schoolboys and thinking, oh, jolly good, because we hadn't a clue, of course, that we were telling Alexander and Eisenhower that the Germans had swallowed the bait, hook, line and sinker, and they were moving all their units away from Sicily. And of course the Sicilian campaign was over in a month. They'd taken everybody away. It was wonderful.
Well, when I left the destroyer, I was sent to Glen Holt Camp. And when I met this leading hand, I said, "What's your name?" He said, "Peter Shaw." He said,